Entrepreneurship, business, and the people who make the world go round. What advice do they have? What struggles did they overcome? My name is Philip Benz, and these are the questions I have. Welcome to Black Tie Optional. Bill, how's it going?
It's going. It's going. I'm here. I'm excited, but being in front of the camera, it's a little nerve-wracking. But
Right.
now I can feel everyone's pain that they've been suffering through for 40 plus years.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I figured that you'd be the perfect person to actually do it first. So what I want to do is, this is the first time that I'm doing this. Me and you've talked about this for a while. The last time we saw each other, I did your little interview thing.
We had a good time with that. That was great.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That was awesome.
So I wanted to kind of pick your brain, learn more about you. We've known each other for years. We don't really work too much together, but whenever we do, it's always a good time. So first things first, what's your name and what do you do?
I am Bill Goode, and I've been a photographer for 40 plus years. I say 40 plus because I don't want to give the real number out. And I can go back 50 years maybe. I mean, high school was my desire, my passion for photography. It kind of started back then. And I'm originally from New Jersey, so I am a Bruce fan. And I moved here in '76. Met my wife Amy, and from Tarboro. I wouldn't have found Tarboro on my own, but I got down here in '76. Met her up there actually, and we came to Tarboro, started working for the newspaper office and as a photographer and salesperson to start with, and started stroking my photography aspects. And one thing led to another, started doing weddings, and it was a gradual process that I really sort of, I hate to say fell into, but was really, really got into it a whole lot.
Yeah, I already knew that you were not from Eastern North Carolina. Yeah. I just figured that you just threw a dart at a dartboard and you hit Tarboro, because this is a small community.
Yeah, I wouldn't have, Tarboro is a beautiful place, and I would never have found it, but the fact that she was from here. Of course, when we first moved here, it was like, okay, where are we going to live? We'll be here temporary, and that's it. And now we've been in this house for 40 years, and so we're still trying to get out.
it all worked out. It all worked out.
That's right.
Well, you guys are in a beautiful area, so I mean, it makes it kind of easy, though, I'm sure.
It's really been a love. It really has, and the community really has embraced us for so many years, which I'm really proud of that. So it's really been good for us. So.
Awesome. So when it comes down to like your early career, so you grew up in New Jersey. When did the photography thing actually start?
Well, I guess it started off as being a person in business. When I first moved here, working for the newspaper, going around selling advertisements to all these people, and I'm thinking, man, I can do business better than this. These people, the way they were acting, the way they were treating people around them, I thought it can't be that hard to be in business. And the photography aspect of it was more of a creative thing for me. I thought there's got to be a way to take the creativity that I really enjoyed and put that into a business. Not like today where everybody with a cell phone is a photographer, but back then you had a very small amount of people in the business. In Rocky Mount, you had 3 photographers. In Tarboro, there was one already. Nashville, you had 5 or 6 across 3 counties. And so it was really a nice transition for me. The film world was, of course, a challenge, which was it was easy for us back then. Not like it is today, but I think it was sort of a gradual process when I got into it like that.
Yeah, and I think when I came into it 12 years ago, it was the same boat where on the video side of things, the DSLRs were really just starting to come out. There was no really camcorder anymore. So there was only 3 of us in Greenville that were doing like the cinematic wedding type of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess similar boat.
Yeah, and I can remember going to a seminar, seeing the first digital camera that Kodak actually produced. And they probably missed the boat by not expanding that line, but that camera was like $25,000, $30,000, and it had like a 2 meg file or something. It was really low file in today's aspect of file sizes. It was next to nothing. So it was really amazing to see that. And they said, "This is going to be the technology that's going into the future," and we're like, that's not going to happen,
Yeah. So you, speaking of technology, you've seen the transition from film to digital to cell phones that can shoot almost nearly just as good as a high-end camera can now, which is crazy. How did you guys market yourself back then without the use of social media and stuff like that?
Well, it was one thing that suffers today that we had back then was marketing yourself was a networking thing. You went out and you shook hands with people, you talked to people. Our only advertising aspect was the newspaper and a yellow page ad. That was basically it. You spent,
word of mouth.
Yeah, word of mouth. That was it. You got involved with civic groups. You got your hand. One big thing for photographers back then was displaying your work at different places. We used to have our prints displayed at a few restaurants. That was really big for us. So people could go there and see our work on display. Being involved with social groups, civic groups rather, was big for us. That was really big. But you had really two things: the yearbook, the yellow page book, and that was it really. So there wasn't like today. Social media and everything else that's available is just, it's impossible to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things about today is, I mean, you have to have skill, but you can also just kind of be lucky. And if you get that one lucky thing and then everyone just sees all your other content that maybe didn't get so lucky, you pretty much easily just had it made.
Yeah, and I've had people come up to me many times, well, I want to get in the photography business. What can I do? What's a good thing to do? And my question to them is always, what could you do different than the guy down the street's doing? Why are you going to copy all the 10 other photographers in your market? Go copy some guy in California or Colorado or something. They're doing something different over there than we're doing here. So what's going to make your product more desirable than the others around you? And of course, in film, it was a cost factor. When you were shooting film, you were more selective. Doing portraits, for instance, it was like, okay, 2 poses, boom, boom, move on to the next one. Boom, boom, move on to the next one. Because every time you expose that shutter, it's going to cost you $2.
And that probably made the skill set.
Yeah.
Also, if you were a photographer back then, a successful one, then you knew that you knew how to work a camera.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't just kind of like, let's just hold the shutter down and let's hope for the best.
Everything we did back then was done in the camera. We had these bellows lens shades, we had filters, we had vignetters. So the whole key was, let's photograph this family and get it in the camera so we can have machine prints and not pay costly for the prints. There was no retouching back then. It was all done. As soon as you shot the image, it was done. It looked beautiful. People, retouching was a bonus. But now it's digital. It's all on the post end. The digital images are so crisp and clear in large files that you have to do everything in Photoshop and do everything to calm it down. From a shooting point of view, of course, we were more selective with film because the cost factors, and we only had 24 in a roll or 12 in a roll, so we had to time that out just right, especially during a wedding. But now with photography and digital, it's like spray and pray. Like, just shoot a bunch of them, and I'll pick the best one out of the 50, and I'll do that one. So it's really kind of it's a different world now, that aspect.
Nice. So at what point did you actually realize like photography is what you want to do? Like, can you remember that moment?
Unfortunately, I've been sort of a fly by the seat of my pants kind of guy. And when I got into the newspaper business as a photographer and salesperson, I sort of transitioned into my own studio. I'd go there in the afternoons and started working, and one thing led to another. I really enjoyed the people. That was really the best part of it. Weddings were my foundation back then. That's when I started in the wedding business. I never shot a single portrait in my life. When I opened the studio up, I had a place in a mall, and never shot a portrait. I had maybe 5 or 6 weddings under my belt. And I think about nowadays, it would be suicide to do that. And so, but there wasn't, the competition was a big help. I felt like I was bringing something different to the table than what I've seen in my market area that I was in. So I felt like that was really a bonus for me. Coming from a different state where I had photographed weddings and had done some things that were really sort of way different than what I saw was going on here. I thought maybe this, I'll try it. When I met my wife, she was a dental hygienist at the time. She had a dog and a car and a job, and I had maybe a car, and that was it. So I thought, well,
a camera too.
Yeah, a camera, and we'll stay in Tarboro. So she wins. This is why we're here. So.
Awesome. Were there any like challenges you faced in the early days? I mean, especially transitioning maybe out of the newspaper to going off on your own. Any challenges that just really stand out that you had to overcome?
Yeah, the challenge for me was really just being in business. And that's really the challenge, I think, for a lot of people in the photography business. They have this creativity, they have this art that's behind them and driving their passion, but they're not good business people. And I felt like I was personable, networkable. I like to talk to people. I didn't have the business skills that to run the business like I really should have. So we had some challenges, financial challenges back in the early days that we had to learn the hard way to kind of overcome. And so that was, if I had, I'd never gone to college for business courses or anything. I think I had about 1.5 years of community college at that time. That wasn't my deal. So I just sort of learned by doing. So I think the financial challenge was really for us. The creativity challenge really really exploded when I got involved with a organization, the Professional Photographers of North Carolina. And I think that's the only education we had back then, was to get involved with groups with our own peers that we can learn from. So that was the big thing.
Yeah, and the thing about being a business owner is I went to school for cinematic arts, and their whole curriculum was really about moving to Hollywood and making a movie or making a rogue documentary and this and that. It was never about making a living doing what you want to do holding a camera. So learning those business aspects of it. My biggest business mistake that I have right now is the fact that I'm a professional procrastinator. I will
Join the club.
I will wait. I will wait until the last week before projects due, and then that's kind of when I do my best work. And it sucks. It sucks for the client.
Yeah.
But I always meet the deadline. But that's just the issue that I have. Did you ever have like any issues with that?
Oh God, yeah. I was back in the days. I say back in the days. I hate to say how old I am now. But during the days when the kids are gone to sleep, wife's gone to sleep. I'm up till 11, 12, 1, 2, and I was a night owl. 12. I did my best work back then. I'll just get the work. I'll do the retouching then. I'll get that done then. Or most of my marketing ideas were back then. And I had these marketing moments back. I can remember. It seems like you get some of the best ideas when you come out of the shower. Oh yeah, let's do this. This is a great idea. A typical scenario for our family was like the movie Moonstruck, when all of a sudden the wife slaps the guy, boom, snap out of it. I'd be coming up with some ideas. We should do this. We should do that. And she had to bring me down to earth a little bit. So,
right.
But I think I get excited about certain things. That was really motivations for me. That worked out really well.
And that's always been fun, kind of meeting with you and working with you and stuff like that, is that you always have like a genuine energy. Like, you're actually excited to be there. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm going to make some money doing this today, and I'll see you later.
I think that's part of it. That's why we're in the business. I think the business itself is energy to begin with. And that to me, if I can convey that energy to the subjects in front of me, I think it all comes together. One of the biggest things that I really enjoy doing weddings especially, was I want to make sure I know everybody who I'm working with. And I went through this process one time, took this class, and it was really awesome, where I was able to remember the bridal parties, guys and girls, remember all their names. I got their names the day before.
More power to you.
Yeah, and so I'm doing the photography for the group. Hey, John, move over here. Susie, move here. And they're like, oh, they got more excited about that than the images I was producing, which was, I think that communication with the people was very important.
How important do you think is the communication side of things, as far as like, the personality, especially with a wedding day? You're coming in there, and typically this is the first time you're either meeting the couple, definitely the first time you're meeting the bridal party and the families and stuff like that. The skill side of things is important, but being a people person. Yeah,
I think the people person part, that really came about with me just trying to connect with them. I always wanted to be part of the family. I wanted to be like the family photographer. I didn't want to be a guy that was on the outside looking in. So sometimes going to the rehearsal dinners was important for me. I have a chance to kind of sit back, survey the situation, watch people, especially when they were in the church, and when I was trying to tag the names of the people. And so when I got to the wedding, I was one of the guys. I was with them, and I think that made a big difference. And if you're not a social person, if you don't like to talk to people, it's not the business to be in. You got to be able to connect with people, I think, too, from that, especially in the wedding market, when you have, and weddings especially. There was one thing that a lot of photographers back then were bailing out of weddings. They just didn't like the heat of it. They didn't like the actual aspect of the chance of something going wrong. But one photographer friend from Rocky Mount, a guy by the name of Will Bragg, who's been a staple in Rocky Mount for many, many years, he told me that weddings are the only thing that you can do that people see you work. They actually see you out there doing things, because there's a lot of people watching what you do. So that actually was a foundation to get other business.
That is true. I never even thought about that part.
Yeah. You're doing portraits, you're doing commercial work, you're in the middle of a small group of people. But when you're out there doing a wedding or big events, a lot of people are watching what you do.
So I think it's important. You have to,
it's important to dress the right way, to approach the right way, be professional. I see a lot of unprofessionalism, I think, nowadays in the wedding market.
Yeah, it's unprofessional to an extent, but then like there's the super laid back nature of it as well, to where it's like, you're still going to work.
Yeah,
you have to have a little bit of sense of pride about yourself and your work and this and that.
Yeah, I'm there to do a job, and I'm not there to go ahead and have an hour meal with the family. It's just I'm here to be able to capture what's going on, and if I'm not ready for that, because every time you do take that one moment's break, you grab something off the table and somebody's yelling at, hey, come over, shoot this, and you got to stop what you're doing and go ahead and jump in there and do that. So it's really kind of, and that's why weddings are a whole different animal, I think, too. And unfortunately, somebody who starts the photography business, they feel like a wedding is their first initial stepping stone into the business. So there's a lot of lack of experience there when they first get into it.
There's a lot of people I've seen that they start out shooting weddings, but then a couple years goes by, they have some experience, they drop it because they've moved on to bigger and better things. But the cool thing is that when you introduce yourself to someone new, just like, oh yeah, I'm a wedding photographer, they're just like, oh, yeah, well, that's cool. Like, is this your full-time job?
Yeah.
And they don't realize that you can actually make a really lucrative living from shooting weddings.
Well, weddings were 30% of our income back then. And so we were doing 20, 30 weddings a year, which was really amazing. Didn't have much life on the weekends, but that was, so I would make sure I would bring cake home at night to the kids. Oh, Daddy's bringing cake home tonight from the wedding. So we do a little cake cutting in the house or something like that, and having the kids wrap their arms around each other like this, serving cake. It was just to make something fun. So it made it exciting to come home when the kids were missing you, I guess, on the weekends.
So you just mentioned something about not really having the weekends and stuff like that. The trade-off, though, is that the normal average person out there, they're working 9 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Right.
So when they're just like, oh, you don't have your weekends, it's like, yeah, but I got Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
You don't have Monday through Friday.
Well, when you don't. You don't. You tear the weekends up now. Now we're not doing as many weddings as we used to, and so really now I've kind of got my weekends back in a way. But then you shot all those images. You had 4 or 5 days after that to get them ready. So you spent a lot of time editing and taking care of those images. Then if you had a lucrative business, you were not only doing weddings, but you also had portraits. You had other things during the week. So we always took off on Mondays. So that was a day we can kind of decompress, even though we still worked on Mondays. We just didn't see people on Mondays.
Right.
So that was a nice way to kind of transition out of having a day off, I guess. Which worked
now,
really.
What was your last real job?
My last real job was probably driving a catering truck. I've always had jobs where I always was in a business with somebody else. I drove a catering truck for a mentor, a great friend of mine who was my football coach when I was a kid. He had a deli, actually. That was my first job, was a deli. I drove a catering truck, one of those things that when things pop up, you drive up the construction site, people come in really quick, and they cool. I sold men's clothing. I delivered meat for a butcher shop. Then I was selling, and sold advertising for a radio station when I first moved to North Carolina. So there was a radio station in Rocky Mount called Weed Radio. And so I worked for what a name that was, but it was awesome. It was like a carbon copy of like WKRP in Cincinnati. The same characters, great people. But I worked there for 2 years as a salesperson, and that really got me into the market a little bit too. It was tough to walk into a store in Rocky Mount, kid right with a Jersey accent. Yeah, you want to buy some advertising? So just I didn't get too much response out of that. So.
I'm sure. Now, when you finally decided to just step away from, I guess, the quote unquote real jobs, and kind of work for yourself. What was that feeling like? Do you remember?
It was nice. There was a freedom. There was a kind of a love for it. Really, there really was. And of course, I think the age factor too. When you work that many hours a week, it just didn't.
How
bother
old were you when you?
I started. I was probably 22, 23, and we got married. I get this right now. We got married in '76, so
she'll probably see this. So.
77, met in '76. Maybe she won't watch. I married in '77, so I think I was 23, 20 when we started, 24. Really started the business in 80, 79, 80.
Nice.
We started, and my first we had a place in the mall here in Tarboro. Somebody had the location. They lost their business. It was a deli there, and the guy said, "Hey, I'll sublet it to you if you want it." And so he did good for me for that. So it worked out really well.
Nice. So what's been your most rewarding thing about being an entrepreneur all these years? I mean, being self-employed.
Yeah, so I think self-employed and being able to call the shots yourself and being able to your decisions you make are your own. no one's making them for you. Of course, you can fail and screw up, which is a good thing because then you learn from that. But I think that's probably the best thing, I think. And I've worked for other people before, worked with other people before. I don't think I've ever really worked for a company, a large company before, so I don't know how that would be. But I don't know if I can get used to that or not, if I ever could. But I've always worked with people, small business, and then decided to jump in by myself. I never sat there in front of a guidance counselor in school and said, "This is what I want to do. I'm going to go and do this." I honestly just sort of fell into it. I did not go to school for any particular thing. I knew I was kind of creative at the time, and I wanted to express that. So that was really where I kind of took off with it.
Awesome. When you were trying to figure out the whole photography thing and this and that, I'm sure over these years of you doing it, you've experienced burnout.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think too is burnout to me is just doing the same thing over and over again. Trying to get different results. But I've had a number of levels of that, I think. And I think really growing in the business is like you hit certain plateaus. You hit a plateau and there's a burnout possibility there. And what are you going to do to get to the next level? And I think what really, to me, what really sort of helped the burnout process was learning, education. So let's go to a seminar. Let's go to another convention. I think that really, I come home from a convention, my head's just kind of twirling around. I got all these new ideas I want to jump into. And I think that's really a great thing for burnout. And I think really I get a lot of that help from networking with other people. The networking process to me really helps that burnout process. So I think people nowadays in the business, if they don't network with other photographers or network with other people, can they get that from YouTube? Can they get that from online processing or somebody selling a program? Hopefully they can get pumped up a little bit. But I think you can't be in business or be an entrepreneur without being some kind of burnout. It happens. I think it happens to everybody.
Right. Kind of going off the burnout question, when it comes down to an experience that you had over these years, is there any point in time that you can remember that you just wanted to throw in the towel, quit, and how do you overcome that time?
Yeah. I think after probably a 90-hour work week or something like that, when you've done a couple weddings in a weekend and you've had a really full week, and all of a sudden you think, well, gee, I'm just taking the money from this hand and I'm throwing it out of that hand, and you're not keeping what you're supposed to be keeping. And yeah, you have those moments. You have some times, and then something comes along and just lifts you up. Maybe you've done a great job with a child's portrait, and someone just praises you on it, and you think, yeah, that's why I'm here. That's those little things like that really kind of get you fired up. And next wedding comes up that following weekend, you're psyched up for it, and you have those little moments that you have to pick yourself off the ground, dust off your boots, and keep on rolling. So.
Awesome. Well, man, I only got one more question for you. It might lead into something else, but we're going to find out. So if you were to go back in time to your younger self and actually mentor Bill Goode back in the day, what advice would you give to yourself?
Buy Apple stock. Buy Google.
For sure, yeah.
I don't know. I think I would probably, that's really a kind of a wild question. I think I probably would tell him to just be more aware of the future. Spend more time, I think, with those around you. And there's probably a way to have a better balance between work and life. I feel like we did pretty well with that. We're proud of our children, where they're all right now, and that was a great, it was challenging years, of course, raising kids, but we're certainly proud of where they're all right now in their lives. But I think back then I would tell him, just chill, calm down. It'll be okay. Don't get panicky about this, and whatever happens will pass. So just get a good balance in life and just keep on moving. But that would be probably, if I had to reach back and smack that kid back then and just tell him what's going on, I would probably do that. So.
Awesome. Well, Bill, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for doing this with me.
I've enjoyed your work is astounding, and I'm always in awe of watching your clips on social media, and I love to share the process, love to share the industry, and hope that somebody will see this and take a moment and enjoy it. And so don't get discouraged. It's a constantly day-to-day changing industry and business, so you have to keep on punching away.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Appreciate the time. Thanks.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and thanks so much for watching. For more on Black Tie Optional, subscribe on YouTube by hitting the notification bell or follow us on Instagram and Facebook. To become a sponsor or donate to the podcast, shoot me an email at philipbenzpro@gmail.com. Your donations help tremendously in keeping this podcast going. Until next time, thanks again for watching, and stay motivated.